Welcome to Voices of the Vigilant, where we dive deep into the human side of tech. Here, we go beyond the ones and zeros to explore the people, passions, and stories driving the cyber and internet security world. In each episode, we bring together experts, rebels, and innovators from across the tech industry to share their personal journeys, challenges, and victories. And here's your host and rebel in charge at Vigilant Violet, Jess Vachon.
Hello, welcome to another episode of Voices of the Vigilant. I am just blown away by my guest today, and you will be too. Mariana Padilla, CEO and co-founder of HACKERverse AI. Welcome.
Oh my gosh, thank you so much for having me. I've really been looking forward to this. I know we've been trying to get on the books for a while, so here we are. This is gonna be great.
Yeah, well, you're busy, right? So I really appreciate your time. We were talking before we came on about how you had to let everyone know, hey, I'm going to be on a podcast, and right up until the last minute working. And I'm sure once we're done here, it's going to be going right back to the drawing board and creating the amazing things that you're creating. I like to let my guests introduce themselves and tell us what you're doing right now, and especially tell us about HACKERverse. So the floor is yours.
Oh, well, awesome. Yeah, so hello everyone watching and who will be watching this later. Again, Mariana Padilla, co-founder and CEO of HACKERverse AI. So what we're really trying to do at HACKERverse is, I would say, overhaul, revolutionize, throw out the old cybersecurity sales process and really create something that works for both sides of the equation for both vendors as well as enterprise security buyers. So what does that mean? Essentially, we're creating a platform where we use generative AI and automations to quickly spin up product proof of concepts. We then host those on our platform for self-service product evaluation, building out some really cool things like multi-tool evaluation actually in the pike right now, so you can be able to come to the platform and test products with each other. Also do a lot of really fun, disruptive things. World Hacker Games is one of the things we're known for, where we put vendor products in a CTF and essentially real-time product validation. So disruptive way of selling cybersecurity products, and it's long overdue in my book.
So let's talk about that. Like, where did the idea come from? How did you discover the need? What's been the response to the product and what you're trying to do?
Yeah, so this was all the brainchild of my co-founder, Craig Elrod, who has been a sales engineer, led sales engineering teams for over 25 years at vendors, MSSPs, kind of across the industry. And so this was a lived pain point of his, which was like manually building out demos, manually building out POCs, very linear process. You build this thing out, it takes months to build and execute, and then you bring the customer in or install it in their environment, and sometimes they don't even close the sale, and so it's literally full of friction. Obviously, on the buyer side, those months and months are also frustrating for you, right? So if you have to get this product installed in your environment, there's checklists and there's legal and there's just like so much stuff. And so I think it's definitely been something that people are getting excited about. One of the things I talk about a lot is Ross Halaliuk wrote a book called Cyber for Builders, and he has a whole chapter on why like the current sales process is dead. He has a whole thing, like literally paragraphs and paragraphs on like why selling to CISOs is not a thing. And Jess, I'm sure as a CISO, you this is a pain point you live of getting pitched constantly. So on your side, I'm sure you know that this is something that CISOs really, really want. And so and enterprise buyers in general. And so I think that has been really great. What we have really tried since the very, very beginning to make sure that this is a platform that is wanted and created for everyone involved. So we have really been strategic about doing, hundreds of hours of discovery calls with the buyer side to really understand their pain points in the process, what it has looked like, what an ideal sales process would look like for them, as well as vendors, and really understanding, their own sales challenges, right? Because we're not out here like trying to slam vendors and salespeople. That's not what we're doing. obviously products are needed. We need cybersecurity tooling. There's a lot of incredible products out there that we need to get in the hands of the people who need them. We just want to make that easier and faster and more enjoyable for everyone.
Yeah. You listed all my pain points as part of what you just said. I don't even know where to start on this, but when I'm looking for a product, right, I want to go out and research it without having to sign into a website and give out all my information.
Mm-hmm.
I don't want to just read the marketing material. I come from a technical background, so I want to get in and kick the tires a little bit. And I know that the teams that I lead, the engineers want to do the same thing. They don't really care about the marketing fluff. Maybe after they've kicked the tires, they want to know, like, okay, how's it built? In terms of, is it a secure product? How long does it take to implement? But most people, I think, in information security with the technical background want to get in and figure out the product for themselves and see, does it fit my need? And you don't need a salesperson for that. You don't really need a sales engineer for that, although they bring a lot of value to the table.
Yeah, absolutely.
And you don't need to be marketed to, and you don't need a million calls. As a CISO, I don't have an unlimited amount of time for cold calls.
Yeah.
And to sit in the marketing part of a demonstration. And then when I'm interested in the product, the proof of concept, bringing it into my environment can take months. So you touched on that, right? We have to do the non-disclosure agreements. We have to prepare the environment. If it's not a SaaS-based product, then I've got to get some servers spun up for it. There's integration that has to be done. And then if I decide I don't want the product, now we've got to unroll all of that. So there's so much involved there. I have been able to see your product. You've demoed the product for me. I've been able to see it mature over time. And it is so awesome to be able to go in there and say, I can touch the product, I can use the product, but guess what? There's AI built into the back of here that will now simulate real world use of the product. So I'm not just pressing buttons and going between menus. I'm able to actually have myself or my team see how this product will work in production in our environment. I can't overstate the value that has to a CISO, that has to technical teams. And I would assume for sales teams as well, you're reducing all that friction, you're reducing that time to the sale. You don't have to be on call after call after call. It's just, I think it's the way that the industry needs to go. Let's talk a little bit about the AI piece, right? So we know AI is changing all industries, and it's especially changing the IT and the information security industries. It's allowing us to move faster. It's allowing us to do things with less staff. And now you're introducing a way in which we can test and evaluate a product and potentially our environments with it. There's some pushback that AI is going to displace people. I think that's true. It will displace people, but I think, like with all other technologies, it's just going to change the way we work.
Yeah.
When you've introduced your product to people and you've shown them the AI piece, how have they received that part of the product?
I mean, I think it depends on who you're talking to. I think overall, people understand the value proposition, just like you said. I mean, it is changing workflows pretty dramatically, right? I think there's a lot of really positive use cases for it. I think what's really exciting, like you said, is like the real world testing abilities that we're providing. So, we started with this process of, stitching together attack campaigns based on the MITRE framework. And we, had that all built into the POC where you can run the attack campaign, you can see how that performs in the vendor product. And that's really, really great and cool. But now where we're headed with that is making those bots agentic. So we're going to be training them. So they're going to be learning, they're going to be, ingesting testing the latest information around how these attack campaigns are shifting and all of that kind of stuff. So, I mean, what essentially is going to be happening is that we're going to be continually testing some of these vendor products. They're only going to get better. They're going to get stronger. It's going to be real time, feedback for them on how buyers are using the POC, where their product may be falling short. So ultimately, I think it makes us all stronger, which isn't that why we're here? Sometimes we forget that, I think.
Yeah, and that's a good point, right? We're supposed to be moving our industry and the work that we do forward. We're supposed to be changing. So it sometimes is ironic that people in our industry are dismissive of AI when it's moving in the direction, in the future that we were hoping for and that we're trying to build.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. I mean, there's a lot to be nervous about, obviously, right? And so it's like, as a CISO, you have to be aware of the tools that your employees are bringing in house. Sometimes maybe they're not even telling you they downloaded this thing. It's totally insecure. What kind of content is being fed into that AI system? Like, you don't even know. There's a lot to consider. We talked about agents. Now each individual agent needs to be secured. I mean, there's a lot happening. I mean, the only way I think to effectively secure all that is also with AI. I mean, there's going to be a lot of human work involved, obviously, but if we're not adopting that in a safe way, I mean, it's going to be an uphill battle, and you're probably going to lose. I mean, the thing we need to do is, like, I just feel like we're constantly learning, and I have kind of stumbled into cybersecurity. I'm not native to cybersecurity. Stumbled into it, met my co-founder. We hit it off, and I absolutely love being here. And I think a huge reason for that is because you constantly have to learn, and I get so bored. I'm like ADD, but now I'm just like, I'm learning something new every day because I have to, because if I'm not, then I'm behind, right? So yeah, to the naysayers out there, sorry. Get on the boat, get left behind. I don't know. So, and I mean, I get it. Look, I understand. Like, some people may be kind of standing back and seeing what's going to happen before they take action. But I mean, what I would say to that is, like, are threat actors stopping? Are they holding back, or are they using these tools to their advantage to do new harmful things every single day, every single hour, every single second of every single day? So,
yeah. In case in point, we can look over the last 6 months, last year, all the attacks that we know are backed by AI agents that are being used to break into organizations. So we don't have a choice. It's here. It's going to change the world we're living in, and we have to change with it. We look at the auto industry. Like, we can look back at 100 years of history, and we can see how the auto industry has changed. And mechanics from 50 years ago and mechanics now have totally different tool sets.
Yeah.
Right. You bring a car into a repair shop now, the first thing they do is hook it up to a computer.
Right.
And why? Because there's so many computers in the vehicle.
Yeah.
I have a vehicle that has AI built into it and interacts with ChatGPT. So
yeah,
it's here. This is the world we live in. And there, as much as you may feel uncomfortable with it, to your point, get out and learn about it.
Yeah.
Stay in front of it. Figure out the benefits. Figure out the drawbacks. You can still have your humanity, but there is a better tomorrow coming if we're smart about how we leverage the AI.
Yeah. I mean, what's interesting, this is like not at all related to the question that you asked me, but it is interesting to see kind of the I don't know if I would call it the response, but what is occurring as a result of AI, right? So the other day I posted on LinkedIn about just like the ridiculous slop that's getting fed by the algorithm. There's so much crap out there. I think that it is really forcing people to people really want that human to human connection, and people are coming together in community and creating content in a way and really thinking about the humanness of all of this in a way that hasn't happened. And to me, as someone who will die on the hill of community-led growth and like building for human connection, I'm very excited to see that. So it's an interesting upside of AI adoption, interestingly, is we're all forced to like really, double down on our humanity. And again, that's like not necessarily like cogent to the conversation we're having, but I just think it's just interesting. It's an interesting thing that I'm seeing.
Yeah, so I have that same insight, slightly different. So I have started to use AI in various aspects of my life. So in
Mhm.
producing this podcast, once we're done recording, I will use AI to, do the transcripts, to upload. There's a whole bunch of work that I use AI to do on the back end. And what that does for me is it saves me a tremendous amount of time. So with that time that I have available now, I have more time to spend with my family
Yeah.
or my friends. So it's ironic because AI, it's not another human,
Yeah.
but there are rewards, as you pointed out, to using it that allow us to
Mhm.
interact with each other more often.
Yeah.
We're getting back some of our time. The last podcast episode that I recorded, we talked a lot about AI and what does it mean for our future as humans? How are we going to live in 5 years, in 10 years, if a lot of the work that we do right now is supplanted by AI?
Mhm.
What does that mean to us? And it's discussions that I think we're having here
Mhm.
that we need to have moving forward.
Mhm.
Yeah, I keep circling back to, I think this is going to be a good thing as long as we are good about the governance of it and
Mhm.
realistic about what it can do, and we're willing to change and do work that AI can't do. And
Mhm.
like every other generation throughout history, change is inevitable, but we're still here.
Mhm.
We learn to do different things.
Mhm.
Want to switch things up a little bit. Now, I'm actually going to have to read this part of your background because your background is amazing. I'm going to read this out so our audience
Okay.
knows that you just didn't show up and start this company. Um, you are a driven individual. So your background: Division I competitive swimmer, scaled a marketing agency, Red Lab, to a $1 million per year agency, built HACKERverse, advocate for diversity, inclusion in tech, voted a woman to watch in cybersecurity, and oh, by the way, appeared in over 24 podcasts. Do you sleep? What drives you? I mean, that's a lot for a relatively short span of lifetime so far.
Yeah, well, I mean, you started out with Division I college athlete. I think that tells you a lot about me. Highly competitive for sure. Which my mom used to tell me that I was like horrible at board games when I was young because I was a terrible loser. Just like hated losing. So there you go. Fun fact about me. I've toned it down. I can lose Monopoly now, but apparently sorry used to be a big trigger for me. To the point she was like, I'm not playing sorry with you anymore because if you lose, you like pitch a fit. But anyway, I've grown up a little bit. Yeah, I mean, I definitely am driven. I love accomplishing things. I would say that I'm an obsessive problem solver. So this was not a problem that I knew a lot about. I met my co-founder, we hit it off. He told me about the problem. I, like, as you mentioned, scaled my own marketing agency. Through that process, really had a lot of challenges onboarding customers onto enterprise software, not necessarily cybersecurity, but CRM, other things. It was huge pain. Specifically, HubSpot was a trigger for me in joining Hackerverse. Like, I was trying to onboard a marketing client onto like enterprise HubSpot. The sales team turned over. We weren't actually sure what was going to be included in our plan. Like, it was this whole thing. We couldn't get access to all the features on the free trial. Like, all I wanted to be able to do was like use, touch, feel, evaluate the software. So this is not a problem unique to cybersecurity, which I'm sure everyone knows. Some things lend themselves well to like product-led growth and free trials and that kind of stuff. And so, that's how some aspects of the SaaS industry are adapting, is through that. There's a whole conversation about whether you require people to insert credit cards and all that kind of stuff. They're still capturing your data, but some things don't necessarily need a tool like Hackerverse. But I understood immediately the value proposition that he wanted to bring, which is essentially try before you buy for highly technical software. That's it. I mean, the number of times I said to myself, like, I just want to be able to use this thing. I call it the existential dread of clicking on the talk to sales button. Like that, oh, you're like, okay, here we go. I gotta click on talk to sales. They're gonna have my information for all of eternity. It doesn't matter how many times I unsubscribe from the mailing list. I'm still on the mailing list. They're still texting me. Like, so I understood the value proposition immediately. And then, I came on initially as an advisor, then became CEO, and was really drawn to the mission because of what we talked about earlier. Like, look, we have an ethical obligation. We have a mission to secure our systems. Like, and that is a mission that I can get behind. I'm definitely someone who has to be working on something that I feel called to in terms of like making an impact and making a difference in in our community and globally. I can't just work for work's sake. It just doesn't work. That's not how I am. So I got it. I was drawn to the mission of cybersecurity and really wanted to help make it a better place in my own way. And so that was through, really revolutionizing the sales process and really getting the best tools in the hands of the people who need them. I think, there's a whole conversation to be had around why the sales process is the way it is now, and all of that kind of stuff. But it's very much when I feel connected to the mission of what I am doing, then I'm just like won't stop until I get there.
Interesting. So when you were out as CEO of your company, you've got to go out and you've got to get funding, backers, and you've got to get interest of other groups. And I just mentioned your background. What aspects of that background are you pulling to influence the funders and get them on board? And do you see challenge in that your background lets you overcome?
Yeah. So I would say, I think one of the common threads in everything I've done is storytelling. I mean, obviously that's inherent to marketing, right? But before that, spent some time in nonprofit, briefly had a little stint teaching middle school and high school, which I don't think a lot of people know that. But I think that, the common thread there really is storytelling, right? The better you can tell a story, the more successful you're going to be at everything, in every industry. And that's something I deeply believe. I taught history, so I thought, storytelling is the best way to teach that. No one wants to memorize random dates that mean nothing, that has no context for anybody. Like, why the human motivations and all of that in the stories behind that is what really, hooks students. That's why I got interested in history to begin with. I was actually a history major, so there you go. So I would say storytelling is a huge piece of that, and I think Craig, my co-founder, saw the value in what I brought to the table immediately. I think cybersecurity is full of very intelligent, highly technical people who suck at communicating, and that's just a blanket statement.
You know us so well.
Not obviously, there's exceptions to the rules, but I think it's like it's at every level, right? So it's like practitioners to mid-level managers, it's CISOs to the board, it's security teams to the rest of the organization, talking about the value proposition, it's founders to investors. Like, I can't even tell you the number of like just terrible pitches that I have sat through where it's like, here's the 85 product features that we offer. It's like, who gives a fuck? Like, why? Like, why? So anyway, there you go. I would say that's a huge reason for our success. I have a pretty strong personal LinkedIn brand, which I'm sure will, at the end, you'll tell people how to get in touch with me or follow along LinkedIn. And that honestly is our biggest source of inbound right now as a company. And what investors are like, oh, you're kind of like semi-famous on LinkedIn. This is, I'll put that in. I'm actually maybe put that in my LinkedIn tag, like kind of semi-famous on LinkedIn. Hashtag semi-famous on LinkedIn.
I think it's more than semi-famous. And of course, your brand with the eyeglasses, for those of you who are listening in, Mariana's eyeglasses are amazing. It's eyeglass goals for me. But definitely, I mean, if you've got that thing, you market that thing. And with your marketing background, I mean, this, you've mastered that. I want to speak to your advocacy for diversity and inclusion. Where does that spring from? And how do you share that in the work that you do and outside of your official capacity as a CEO in your personal life?
Yeah, so that's something I've always been passionate about. Like I mentioned, my kind of background in education. I that was how I initially wanted to make an impact on the world. I quickly became clear that there's a lot of flaws in public education. I am not someone who subscribes to the belief that this is the way we've always done it, is the way we should do things, and that in our public education that's the mentality, which is very unfortunate. I think we're massively undereducating our youth and not educating them in the things that will help them for the next economy and the next job market, but that's a whole other conversation. And so the other thing that I kind of learned through that process was it was in inner city schools. There was just so many challenges facing these kids externally that were preventing their success. My impact was limited. Just like, why do you care about the War of 1812, I think. I should know this. I taught this. When you like don't know where you're gonna sleep at night, or like, there were so many other things happening, and a lot of really good kids who were just dealt really bad hands in life. And so from there moved to nonprofit, and that's actually where I got connected with marketing. But I'm someone who is, what am I trying to say? I am very aware of injustices, I guess is what I will say, in all aspects and it's just like so prevalent and getting worse, to be honest. And so when I was talking about being mission driven earlier, that's essentially it. It's like, I just feel called to make an impact in the way that I can. I think ultimately one of the things that I would love to do is to make a lot of money on Hackerverse, and then use that money to like burn the system down. We really need to change it. And I think the only way to change it right now is to have a lot of money. You got to make a lot of money to change things, which is unfortunate. And so that, in my personal life, that's what I would love to do eventually is to figure out a way to leverage returns from a tech company to really make an impact. I think there's a lot of really interesting opportunities for how we think about building businesses in the future, from like co-op models to like really reforming economic systems to like work for people and societies as a whole. Clearly, I have given this a lot of thought. Like, do you remember that like social media trend from a few months back, like the Roman Empire? Like, how many times a day men think about the Roman Empire? Mine is like rethinking global economic systems. That's something that I think about like a lot.
Yeah, no, I do too. And I have found, at least in my experience in our professional community, that there is a lot of thinking about that. And I think a lot of us went into technology because it promised a better tomorrow.
Mm-hmm.
And we're in a place now where I think those of us that, got into technology in the late 90s and saw a promise, a new world, a new world order for everyone, have reached this point of being disillusioned
Oh yeah.
in what
Because
we.
the folks leading the charge in this technology have not done what we had hoped they would do.
And true, right? And they have the billions of dollars, and they're sitting on it, or they're
Right.
using it for their own ends, which,
Mm-hmm.
hey, yes, that makes some sense. But to me, I'm confused when you have billions of dollars, how you can address social issues that you see around
Right.
you. And I'll use the example of RSA. We've been to RSA. You walk out of RSA, you go a couple blocks over, the social issues hit you over the head. They're
Yep.
all around you. And it's
Right.
probably one of the most challenging things for me when I go to RSA, is when I leave, because RSA is millions of dollars. You have companies that are renting out museums and entire restaurants, and you go outside and you see someone who's using yarn to stitch together their shirt so they have a covering over the top of their body,
Right.
or someone who society doesn't have the resources to help them with their substance misuse or their mental health issues. It's a weird world that we're inheriting and living in right now, where that
Mm-hmm.
stratification is so varied.
Yeah.
There's the small majority that has everything,
Yeah.
And there's a big, used to be a minority, but it's a big majority of people that have nothing and are getting less.
Yeah.
So I think it's good that we talk about this. I
Mhm.
think it's good that we're frank about it and realistic about it. And I love to have communications with people or interactions with people who say, if I can get to this point, this is what I want to do. I want to fix
Mhm.
this.
Yeah.
And I sometimes we think we have to do it on such a large scale, but I actually picked up a book. I don't have it handy. I set it aside here, but it's on microactivism, and it
Mhm.
talks about how we can make these changes within our means on such a small level, and most of it's around just living the example
Yeah.
and being true to our principles.
Mhm.
So it's refreshing to hear you talk about that. And I don't think anyone who knows you questions that you live your principles. It's just it comes out of you, and you're so authentic that it's there. So it's great that you talked about that, and I could hear the passion coming out about wanting to fix the world.
Mhm.
And
Yeah.
hopefully more people in our industry are sharing that and are thinking about what are my next steps.
Mhm.
Not just about a career, it's got to be about making a difference.
Yeah, well, no, and I appreciate that. And definitely something I'm passionate about. Have running commentary. I tell people. So grew up with a mom who, in a former life, was a card-carrying member of the Communist Party. So I feel like I would have either turned out one of two ways, like a hardcore Republican or who I am. Like I feel like there's no middle ground there. Like you're going one way or the other. It's either like what is that, or like, oh, okay, I see, and acknowledge that. Also a labor union organizer, like she did all sorts of interesting stuff. So I come by honestly, I guess is what I'm trying to say.
Nice. And what a good segue, because I was going to ask you about what were you like as a kid, and what do you think the influences of your parents were on who you've become today and how you guide your life?
Yeah. Well, I've shared some things on LinkedIn. If you find me on LinkedIn, I was a big nerd. I'm still a big nerd. I just like happen to have nicer glasses now. They were not cool when I first got my first pair of glasses. They were like brown tortoiseshell. I also had like a weird bowl cut, so like you just like run with that as a vision. Yeah, so grew up in the middle of nowhere, New Mexico. Espanola, just in between, kind of sandwiched in between Los Alamos and Santa Fe. Spent a lot of time in Santa Fe. Love New Mexico. Love New Mexico. Um, I read a lot as a kid, spent a lot of time in books. Then became a competitive swimmer when I was 9. And then, like you said, Division 1 swimmer. But yeah, I would say not that either of them are really interested in technology or entrepreneurship, but I think it was just always encouraged me to really think critically about a lot of things, which I think is more and more important than ever. I mean, I mentioned things that we're not teaching students. If I had to choose two things that like everyone comes out of high school knowing how to do, one would be personal finance and the other would be critical thinking. Beyond that, I think the rest of it's kind of optional, right? Like, so maybe math skills, that's probably important too. Uh, that's probably important too. My math teacher would be horrified, but I was also not very good at math. But so I would say thinking critically and spending a lot of time really analyzing the messages coming our way, and all of that kind of stuff really helped get me to where I am today. And then yeah, I think competitive athletics is something that I think a lot of people give credit to for helping them become who they are as adults, as people. I was actually a distance swimmer, which I think has lent itself well to being a startup founder because it's a slog, right? Like you're in it for the long haul. There's not a lot of quick gratification unless you like have family money or know someone at Andreessen or something, right? Like, so I think there's a lot of tough lessons to be learned and thing adversities that you have to overcome. And I do think that being a competitive athlete was really important to that, which I never would have thought. As I've gotten older, I do think that that it has been kind of key to a lot of things I've done.
Nice. When many, many, many years from now, you reach the end of your career, how do you hope that people remember you?
She lit the fire.
There's no doubt about that. They can see that right now.
She torched it. There you go.
It reminds me of the meme with the little girl who's got the fire
Oh
behind her.
yeah. It's all good. She's like looking around like, yeah, I lit that fire. You're right, I did. Within any organization, you have like your builders and your burners, right? And so like the people who are like, okay, like let's fix what we have and make some changes and try to improve things. And there are definitely some things I think we can do that for, but like I really question where we are societally right now and whether some of these old systems are worth keeping at all. So I don't know. There you go. There's my answer.
Oh, I want to ask so many more questions. I have to ask. So, would you ever consider going into politics so you could affect the change that you want to see?
I thought about it. That was life goal for a very long time. I mean, it's interesting because I always thought I had too little of a filter to be a politician, but I don't think you need a filter anymore. People don't want a filter, apparently. Filter's not needed, filter's not required, nor is having Siri wanted to tell us it's 12:37. Nor is having a brain or a conscience. So I don't know, the bar is pretty low.
You're probably overqualified for politics. All right. So now I want to do a little fun thing that I do in the podcast. It's called an empowering question. I'm going to read it, but you're answering it as if you asked this question to yourself. Hopefully that's not too confusing. It sounded confusing when I said that. So the question is, how would I want to be encouraged right now? What would I want to hear?
Oh, that is a great question. I mean, we're very much in the throes of startup life right now. I'm very much in the throes of startup life and making, working with VCs has been hard. While I do think that my background in non-traditional background in a lot of ways is an asset, sometimes I think that VCs don't see it that way. They may see it as a liability. And oh, that's an interesting comment. I would say that the fight, I would say maybe just some positive talk around that maybe the light is at the end of the tunnel and bigger things are coming and I just need to like keep progressing onward, I guess maybe is what I would say.
Nice, thanks. I didn't realize I muted myself, but
oh, it's all good.
And in the middle of that, a viewer or a listener popped in with a question. I don't know what it said, but hopefully those of you who watch the video don't find it to be offensive. If you do, it's not reflective of my guest or myself. So tell us, where can people connect with you and what are you up to next?
Yeah, so check out our website, HACKERverse.ai. Also find me on LinkedIn. It's very memorable. /here to shake shit up is literally my LinkedIn URL, so you will not forget that. Where I will be next. If you are going to be out in Vegas for our Black Hat DEF CON B-sides, I will be there the 4th through the 9th in Vegas for the whole shebang. I'm definitely doing B-sides. May or may not make it to the infamous pool party. I heard that's a thing. So we'll see. But either way, I'll be in Vegas, and that's probably the next big thing that I have coming up.
Thank you. I'm not going to ask about the pool party. I don't want to know about the pool party.
I don't know. I haven't been to said pool party, so I'll report back.
Okay. Hopefully everyone leaves their cell phones in a black bag someplace.
There you go.
All right. Thank you, Mariana. Enjoyed having you on the show. I hope you enjoyed it as well. Folks, if you like this episode, please take a moment to rate us on your favorite podcast app. Rating the program helps me grow the audience and fund the program. Until next time, bye.
Thank you so much. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you for listening to this episode of Voices of the Vigilant. If you liked what you heard today, please subscribe and leave a review in your favorite podcast app. For a copy of the transcript, to follow Jess, to apply as a guest of the show, or to learn more about services from Vigilant Violet, please visit vigilantviolet.com. Until next time, stay vigilant.